The movie is set in 2055 when the Earth has been ravaged by natural disasters, industrial overdevelopment, and continuous wars using military robots. This has resulted in poor global ecology, which in turn resulted in famine and disease outbreaks. The air is filled with high levels of toxins, which causes children to be born with severe malformations. To restore the environment and help the human race survive, governments worldwide started building domes over the cities called skynets that could purify the toxic air. During this process, a giant meteorite falls onto one of the skynets, named B-16, and produces a giant alien plant, Pandora, which thrives and wreaks havoc when in contact with water. After some studies, scientists discovered that Pandora can take in pollutants from the air and produce harmless hydrogen, purifying the air. One day, soldiers of the Air Combat Unit of the local military unit, Tyler and Commander Johnson Cheng, wait around discussing their next mission in the B-16 Temporary Command Center until Colonel Tam Bing arrives with the details of the mission from HQ. Colonel Tam arrives and immediately asks to see Major General Lee. Then at the Major General's office, Colonel Tam, with the help of Dr. Chan, describes in detail HQ's plan to alter Pandora. The Colonel details that, according to weather forecasts, B-16 expects 2 upcoming rainstorms. Dr. Chan then explains his team's discovery that they can use the first, lighter one to spray a contrast agent so that Pandora would absorb it with the rain, and hope to use that to locate Pandora's pistol and release a virus inside it that can neutralize its growth and keep it around to continue its air purifying, hoping that soon humankind won't have to rely on skynets and will be able to breathe natural clean air. Major General Lee, as a builder of the skynets, hesitates to get on board with the mission as he doesn't want the skynets to become redundant. However, Colonel Tam convinces him to cooperate by explaining the importance of the mission. She then informs the Major General that HQ has dispatched the robot unit to guarantee the mission's success and asks him to allow his air combat unit to assist in the mission. Colonel Tam then shocks everyone in the room by sharing that if the mission fails, HQ has prepared a plan B that aims to directly bomb and destroy Pandora, even though it would potentially put 160,000 civilians in the crossfire and kill them. Colonel Johnson is outraged that HQ has no evacuation plan for the civilians. He resists Plan B and tries to convince everyone to change their minds to no avail. Major General Lee authorizes the mission so that the robot unit can start carrying out the mission inside B-16 as soon as possible. Colonel Johnson calls for a meeting and introduces Colonel Tam to his men so that she can explain the mission. During the meeting, Tyler gets into an argument with Colonel Tam as he believes the mission is too risky for his men due to a lack of proper and organized data to help him assess the success rate and to guide him to improvise in case of unforeseen circumstances. Colonel Tam shuts him down, telling him to just follow orders, and tries to get him thrown off the mission, but Colonel Johnson backs him up as he is his most trusted senior soldier. Colonel Johnson then encourages his men to accomplish the mission as it's morally unacceptable to sacrifice the lives of innocent civilians by retreating to Plan B. Colonel Johnson stays behind as Tyler takes his men and starts the flight in one Orca, a special military aircraft. With him are Private Lincoln and Private Connor, who has joined the mission despite his girlfriend's advice to stay back. The rest of the ACU join the mission in other Orcas and follow Tyler's lead. The ACU updates their every move to the command center and approaches the alien plant. They successfully finish spraying the contrast agent into the plant and watch Pandora absorb it. But then Pandora releases smoke, makes the surroundings unstable, and starts to attack. All hell breaks loose and Orcas start losing their engines, explosions occur everywhere, and the signal with the command center becomes interrupted. Then the military robots are released to carry out the last part of the mission, which is to make sure the gene bullet carrying the virus gets into Pandora's pistol. However, in a shocking turn of events, once the military robots are released, they turn against the ACU and attack the men, which causes them to lose control of the Orcas. Tyler's Orca crashes, loses its signal, and becomes undetected in any of the command center's systems. Everyone in the command center is gutted and takes a moment to process what happened. Colonel Johnson urges Colonel Tam to mobilize other troops to look for survivors, but she opts to move on to Plan B. Colonel Johnson pleads with Colonel Tam to let him use the 3 hours until the next rainstorm to look for his men and continue the mission, hoping not to leave anyone behind, and at the same time trying to avoid the disastrous Plan B. Colonel Tam gives in and gives Colonel Johnson time to try and rescue his men, but states that Plan B will commence as scheduled in 3 hours. Elsewhere in the Orcaire, Tyler regains consciousness and fights to survive, supported by the memory of his late daughter. He checks on Private Connor and the injured Private Lincoln and gets them out of the plane. Once outside, Tyler sees an abandoned hospital nearby and together with Private Connor, carries Private Lincoln inside. Then he orders Private Connor to watch out and goes looking for some medications to help stop the bleeding from Private Lincoln's wounds. Back at the Commander Center, Colonel Johnson leaves the center to find his ex-partner, Lieutenant Taryn Yao, who was discharged a few years earlier for an erroneous judgment he made during a mission, and convince him to join him in rescuing his men. At the abandoned hospital, an unidentified creature roams around the rooms, finds and fatally attacks Private Lincoln. Another creature chases after Tyler and tries to attack him. He vigorously fights with the creature and manages to kill it. Then as Tyler proceeds to leave, he finds a doll. Suspecting that a child must be around, he looks around the dark rooms to find a scared little girl named Pansy hiding behind a bed, and he is reminded of his late daughter. Tyler takes Pansy and goes to find Private Connor, who grimly informs him of Private Linolne's situation. As Lieutenant Taryn and Colonel Johnson start their journey, they pick up feeble signals from Tyler's Orca, inform the command center that the missing men are at the hospital, and rush there. They get there and help Tyler and Private Connor, who were already in the middle of an intense battle with the creatures. Lieutenant Tyrone blows up a wall of the hospital, kills the creatures, and rescues the soldiers. Back in the command center, Major General Lee calls Colonel Tam, and even though there are still 2 more hours until the next rainstorm, threatens her job unless she's prepared to go ahead with Plan B. During this discussion, the command center receives a message from Private Connor stating that they had managed to locate Pandora's pistol before their crash. Colonel Tam is relieved to hear the news and declares the mission is ongoing. Private Connor's girlfriend and communications officer, Lucy, is extremely relieved to hear from Private Connor, and the two share a brief emotional moment on the radio. Private Connor, Colonel Johnson, Lieutenant Taryn, Tyler, and Pansy make it to the truck and discuss how to proceed, as the mission has proved to be too dangerous with too many variables. The soldiers opt to abort the mission and return to the command center, but Colonel Johnson reminds them about Plan B and the many innocent civilian lives it puts at risk. Then everyone is forced to agree to continue with the mission despite the risks to prevent the tragedy. The lieutenant drives the group to the crash site where the Gene Bullet has fallen with its transport aircraft earlier. There, Lieutenant Tao is left behind to wait for them, and as the 3 soldiers proceed out of the truck, Pansy holds on to Tyler and begs her not to leave her behind. Amidst this, Lucy tells Private Connor over the radio that she has discovered that the military robots were responsible for the Orca's explosion, and asks him to look for the head of the robots inside the building to confirm her suspicions. Private Connor asks Colonel Johnson to join him in the building. Colonel Johnson and Private Connor slowly walk to the dilapidated building looking for the Gene Bullet. Inside the building, Colonel Johnson looks for the Gene Bullet, while Private Connor locates the deactivated body of the military robot, holding the pin of a grenade, and takes its head. Colonel Johnson locates the Gene Bullet from afar, but struggles to reach it, as it is suspended in a damaged car over a crumbling floor. The Colonel tries to reach it multiple times, but fails and even hurts himself. Then Tyler arrives just in time and helps his friend. He helps the Colonel reach the Gene Bullet while also fighting off creatures that seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Lieutenant Tyrone hears the struggle of his colleagues and, hoping to prove his worth, runs into the building, guns blazing and killing multiple creatures. Colonel Johnson manages to grab the Gene Bullet, while Tyler rescues Private Connor, and the group makes it out of the building just in time before it collapses. Inside the truck, Private Connor shares with the group what he has discovered, and everyone waits in anticipation to find out who has given the military robot the orders from the memory card in its head. Surprisingly, the answer comes a few minutes later, and it is revealed that Major General Lee has sabotaged the mission remotely so that HQ would be forced to consider Plan B, and he can keep making Skynet to purify the environment once Pandora is forever destroyed. The group calls the Major General and informs him that they are onto him. The accused has no problem admitting to his transgressions and challenges the group to a battle. He sends military robots after them and blocks their communication with the command center. The military robots catch up to the group on the street and an intense battle breaks out. Back at the command center, the communications officers inform Colonel Tam that they have lost all communication with Colonel Johnson and his team, and their location is unknown. Colonel Tam decides that if they don't hear from the team in half an hour, she will authorize Plan B. Meanwhile, Colonel Johnson and his men fight vigorously against the military robots, with explosions destroying the surroundings. Commander Johnson is thrown out of the truck while he fights off the creatures. The rest of the group is in shock, but tries to carry on. At the command center, Lucy informs Colonel Tam about Major General Lee's betrayal. Elsewhere, the team gets to Pandora and gets off their truck to find Pandora's pistol and shoot it with the gene bullet while still being chased by the military robots. Pansy gets anxious, but Tyler encourages her to hide inside the truck while they leave to complete the task. Private Connor takes the gene bullet into Pandora while Tyler and Lieutenant Tyrone fight with the military robots, kill them, and deactivate the signal blocker. They successfully unblock their signal, and the command center finds their location. Colonel Tam accuses the Major General, supported by the evidence in hand, but he seems unaffected. The intense battle continues, and just as the men run out of steam, the rain shower starts and Pandora starts to grow and wreak havoc. Colonel Johnson catches up to his men, rescues Pansy from the truck, reminds them why they have made the sacrifice, and motivates them to go on with the mission. An orca starts flying around Pandora, preparing to carry out Plan B, but is stopped as soon as Colonel Johnson reports that he's entering the pistol to release the gene bullet. Colonel Johnson gets inside the pistol and throws the gene bullet at the creature inside. A dramatic change is seen in Pandora's measurements over at the command center, and Dr. Chan excitedly declares that Pandora has stopped growing, which relieves and excites everyone. 1 week later, Pandora started cleaning the environment of toxins. The movie concludes as Tyler and Colonel Johnson lay back and wash their truck, taking some much-needed time off after all their hard work, with Pansy by their side. And with that, the movie ends. We hope you enjoyed our recap. Watch our next videos on the screen, and don't forget to subscribe for more amazing recaps. See you on the next one.